another visit where I was staying with a French lady who very casually came home for lunch and pulled out some sandwich and some salad from the fridge and pulled out a bottle of wine, poured herself a glass and had for lunch. And I'm like, my God, she's having wine for lunch.
So taste does matter, right? And I always keep telling people, like we eat food with the eyes first, right? So it needs to look good, it needs to smell good, right? And then only it attracts you towards putting that piece of food into your mouth. You spend a lot of time in corporate also, and then you have decided to move. So what is that one trigger point? Is that the trigger point? The one
Oh no, the trigger point was that corporate became boring for me. And if you're going to survive on the revenue generated by the business generated by the alcohol industry in your state, you actually should be having the role of a facilitator rather than being a watchdog. Now, I don't know which generation to blame for that, but I think the bigger blame lies with the sommeliers who made it more complicated than it needs to be. I mean, I understand being a geek about it and being nerdy about it. I love that aspect. I'm not saying that I don't. But a common consumer doesn't care at all. They don't really describe flavors in local flavors, in terms of local fruits, veggies, spices, whatever.
So as a business model, do you think there's scope for a finishing school for the sommeliers? Welcome to Behind the Bottle. I am Dushyant, and this show is about wineries, winemakers, wine influencers, distillers, blenders, you name it, and all the people who are behind the bottle. So today we have with us Sujata Patil ma'am, who has got huge amount of experience around the wine industry in India. She's one of the well-known personalities, and I'm glad that we are having her on our show. We've been trying to get people who have been influential, have been trying to make a difference to the wine industry in India, and she is definitely one of them. So welcome, Sujata ma'am, to the show.
Thank you, Shant.
So I'll start off with a question that you spent a lot of time in France, correct?
2 years,
and,
yes.
Yeah, and you've also now been working a lot in India around the Indian wine industry. So what is the one difference that you find between the culture there and here related to wines?
Oh, I don't think there is one difference. That you can't really compare the two markets, two countries, because there is a culture that has been consuming wines for not generations but centuries.
Centuries,
We are newbies. We are taking our first baby steps into the whole culture part of it. What I can say though is that everybody assumes that just because a person is French, he or she knows everything about wines.
Okay.
That is not the case.
Oh, that's very interesting.
There are a lot of French people who know nothing about wines, and a lot of French people who don't even drink. So that was for me, for sure, revelation, because when I landed in France, I had assumed that almost everyone must know something or the other about wines, but that's not the truth. I did come across a lot of people who said very openly that I've never drunk wine.
Oh, that's very interesting, actually. I mean, the way we see it, I've never been to France, but the way we see it in all the shows or everywhere, the impression comes that, यहाँ तो सब लोग वाइन पीते रहेंगे, मतलब on the table वाइन नहीं होगा तो कैसे चलेगा? But then so then there are part people who drink, part people who don't drink, similar to what there in India. But is the ratio similar? I mean,
no. The ratio is not similar. There are fewer people who are non-drinkers in that country because I think culturally, wine is something that's considered part of their everyday eating and drinking habits.
Yeah.
So, because it's part of the everyday thing, the ones who don't really do it are far fewer than the ones who do drink wine.
Okay.
Because I remember during my first ever trip to France, uh, it was as a student. So we were in a, student accommodations and things like that. It was an exchange program of not a very long one, 15 days. So obviously the students, because of the age we were not allowed to have wines, but they had taken us for a wine tasting session. And there, yes, we got to taste wine, and that's where also the French kids who were with us got to taste wine.
Okay.
On the other hand, I remember another visit where I was staying with a French lady who very casually came home for lunch and pulled out some sandwich and some salad from the fridge and pulled out a bottle of wine, poured herself a glass and had for lunch. And I'm like, my God, she's having wine for lunch. Of course, this is way before I even considered entering the wine business as a career option. But yeah, so that was for me something that was unusual because, culture shocks come at you at different stages in life.
I think similarly we get it in India also. Yeah.
So that was interesting, but I still don't think I can bring myself to have an alcoholic beverage at lunchtime.
Okay.
One is maybe my upbringing, two is the professional training also, where we were taught not to consume
at
wine.
work or
Yeah. It was strict.
Yeah, but I think in Europe it is pretty. I've heard of exhibitions where beer flows and discussions happen over beer and all that stuff. So yeah, I think it's culture to culture possibly that where a person has grown up. Right now, you said that before wine you actually considered career in wine. So I read that you spent a lot of time in corporate also, and then you have decided to move. So what is that one trigger point? Is that the trigger point? The wine tasting?
No, the trigger point was that corporate became boring for me.
You ask me that.
I'm sorry, being very honest. It just became mundane and very repetitive with no new learning happening. And so I was like, I can't deal with this any longer. I need to be able to do more things with what I have acquired as experience and the qualifications that I carry with me. So when I decided to shift, I did like any bright Indian student, try appearing for the CAT and all of that, which never worked out. But at the same time, I had a friend in France. She's still around in France, who sent me some information about a wine course.
Okay.
And that's when I said, okay, why not consider this? And I think it was meant to be, because even today I can tell you that I had my telephonic interview with the school on 15th of September.
Oh.
And 31st of October, I was in France.
Wow. Okay.
So, it was, for me, it was meant to be. Otherwise, students can face issues with visas, funding, so many other things, right? Plus, I wasn't young, I was mid-career. So there were things to settle at home before I packed off to be a student all over again. But it all just fell into place.
Yeah, I think most of the people that I talk to, the career in wine happened by accident, because the times that we are talking about, wahan pe, there was no option ki wine is a career option, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I returned from France, I think I was the only person who had a business program degree in wine.
That's nice. Yeah. That's a good achievement.
Everyone else had, level certifications in WSET, all of the others. But the business school angle, I was the only one who had that. And I must say that till date, I remain the only student to have done that program in French language.
Oh, wow.
A lot of students went after me, but did the courses in English. I remain the only one till date. I was the first one and the only one till date who has done it in French language of instruction.
So you had already learned French before you.
Yes, I have my first qualification is masters in French.
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay.
French was and is like a second language to me. So
Excellent. So that gave you an advantage on getting into the wine industry, I believe. Yeah, because there are still some words I cannot pronounce. So still some wine bottle names that I still cannot pronounce.
I think in terms of pronunciation, I think I have an upper hand over everyone else in India.
Yeah. Coming back to the culture aspect of it, okay. You said there are two different cultures, cannot be compared because they are centuries that they have been manufacturing and producing wine and drinking wine. Whereas India, it is still in a very nascent stage.
Correct.
So, as a person from the industry yourself, do you think India should move towards that, or is moving towards that culture where wine will become an integral part of the household? I mean, the food and beverage.
So if you, okay, I'm going to go back into history.
Yes.
Whiskey was not an Indian product. It was imposed upon India by the British. Why? Because they did not want the local spirits to gain strength and gain popularity. So they imposed whiskey on us. And where are we today? Right? Now, obviously nobody is imposing wine on us, but it takes time to change people's habits. And I'm guessing at some point there will be a bigger segment of the population which will want to consume wine if wines are at a right price point, and if they are of a taste that they appreciate.
Okay.
So there is possibility, there is opportunity, there is huge potential according to me. But we all know that there are various issues that dog this industry. I think it can happen.
Okay.
Because Indians like good taste.
Yeah.
So Indians will do anything for good taste.
So I've been seeing this for the last 3 years, right? I've been writing about food also for some time. So taste does matter, right? And like I always keep telling people, like we eat food with the eyes first, right? So it needs to look good, it needs to smell good, right? And then only it attracts you towards putting that piece of food into your mouth. I think that's how similar it is to wines or spirits also.
Absolutely.
Right? It's just subjective that
Correct.
you may like a particular thing, I may like a different thing.
Correct.
That's the only difference that is to it. But having said that, why is it so intimidating, in India? I mean, wines generally feel intimidating in India. I mean, is that just a myth, or is that just a thought? Or if I am a commoner, okay, I will not immediately think that, wine pina hai. Whiskey comes easy.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people have made it intimidating. It doesn't need to be.
Okay.
I believe that all the articles which were probably written in the 50s and 60s, which percolated to the Indian masses later, where people spoke about, the technical aspects of wine and all of that. I'm sorry, I mean, when you're making a good dish, do you really go into details about where did I source my rice from and where did I source my spices from? And we don't do that. We just enjoy the end result. And that is where I think, now I don't know which generation to blame for that, but I think the bigger blame lies with the sommeliers who made it more complicated than it needs to be. I mean, I understand being a geek about it and being nerdy about it. I love that aspect. I'm not saying that I don't. But a common consumer doesn't care at all about all the geekiness that is there behind wine. He or she just wants to enjoy a good glass. That's it. And, have fun while having that beverage. Do you think people want to know about the different varieties of beer that are there? It's only because it's being thrust at them in terms of knowledge
Yes.
that they are now looking at identifying which is what kind of beer. Who knew 15 years ago people didn't know how many types
Yeah,
of beer
I mean-
could be possible, right? Microbreweries have brought it to them in terms
Correct.
of terminology.
Correct.
But otherwise, it was just beer. Beer is beer, And honestly, according to me, wine is wine.
True.
You pour a glass, you like it, you don't like it. It should stop there. It should not go beyond that. And if you're interested, yes, go ahead and find out why a particular wine tastes in a particular way and things like that. Now, that is much further in the journey of discovery of wines, according to me, for a consumer. As a lay consumer, I think one needs to just understand what is it that makes a wine appealing for that person. And that's for their palate to tell them. You
Of
and I
course.
can't tell them.
True.
Because I can tell you, okay, a good wine should have acidity, fruitiness, tannins, blah, 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 all of that. But if the person in front doesn't relate to those terms, I don't see, I mean, come on, when have you described Ampanna in terms of the acidity of the mango pulp and the amount of sugar or jaggery added to it and the spices added to it? You don't know, you just drink it. And that is what it needs to be. That you just drink it.
So yeah, it is definitely subjective. It is definitely based on what you like and what you don't like. But if I look at the wine industry again, right? Do you think storytelling is a way to increase the reach of wine?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think storytelling is what connects a person to the beverage or the food, whatever. And I'm going to take you back to just last evening's this experience for me. I had dinner at Aragma.
Okay.
And their food is all storytelling. So they were using ingredients which you would normally not see in a dish. But it was the storytelling which made the dish more appealing.
Right.
Okay. And it's not like you're going to ever make that dish at home again. But it's just the fact that the experience was enhanced by the storytelling. I know I'm never going to be able to make a dish like that at home because it is a creation. And I'm not into the creation aspect of cooking, right? So that is not going to happen. I know that. But my experience was enhanced purely because of the storytelling that was there behind all the dishes on the menu.
Yeah, so that's where I am coming to. So the storytelling and the experiential drinking aspect of it, because that's where I see the industry going.
Correct.
Right? I see that the times, I mean, not that there are no more people who drink to get drunk. There are quite a few people who drink to get drunk. But there are a lot of people who are aspirational now.
Yes.
And who, specifically after the COVID thing, I've seen a lot of aspirational eating out, aspirational drinking, and moving towards things which are more experiential.
Right.
So I think that's the way the industry is moving to, at least for the next 4 or 5 years. So storytelling experiences is something that possibly will help the wine industry grow a little more in India or spread the word a little more in India.
It certainly will in terms of how the consumer appreciates the product. There are other things that are linked to growth which are not in the hands of the consumer, unfortunately.
Right,
the industry
right.
has a lot of regulatory and back-end issues which the consumer never gets to know. But for the consumer, I think the experiential part is very, very important. And it is also critical that the person who is delivering this experience is capable of understanding what the level of that consumer is. Is
Correct.
that person at step 0 of the journey, or is that person at step 15 of the journey? Is that person at step 30 of the journey? Because your narrative changes according to that.
Correct.
And it has to, because otherwise you lose that customer, listener, the audience. Okay. And that is something that most people are not able to gauge, is what I have realized. That
Okay.
they don't really pay attention to who's in front of me. They come and I have to say this, and they deliver it. You know, it doesn't work like that. You have to engage with the audience. Only then the audience is going to experience what you wanted them to experience.
Yeah, true. I think that is the way, because I've been studying a little bit about the wine industry. Although I've done my whatever education is there on the spirit side of things, but wine seems more interesting than the spirit, because spirits is already there. But of course, it's a growing thing, and I love what I'm doing. So on the wine side of things, I have seen over the last 3 years, whenever I have done a wine event, okay, we did something very interesting where we paired wine with Indian street food.
Yeah.
Okay, and first it was कि I don't know, risk तो नहीं ले रहे हैं, लोग आएंगे क्या, wine is, and we did it at a very a place which was easily accessible, and खाना मिल रहा था वहाँ पे जो street food था. And it was decent wine available to go with the food. So we paired a prosecco with a batata vada. I keep repeating that all the time, but we paired prosecco with a batata vada, and it worked pretty fine.
Yeah.
It worked pretty fine.
Yeah.
This, I think, kind of helped to remove the intimidation, if I can say, because अब मैं वाइन पीने जा रहा हूँ, मेरे पास 5 तरह के चीज रखे हुए हैं, तो उसमें से कौन सा चीज उठा के खाना है, this also I don't know, right?
Yeah.
And why is that cheese kept over there?
Yeah.
Right? Why are there crackers over there for me? Or why is the pasta being served? Those kind of things. Or I have to have wine only with European food. So that, I think, is a myth to be broken. Do you think so?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's been, I think it's sort of, when I do my events, it's sort of my mission to try and stay away from European cuisine. Not because I don't like it, but I think I want people to realize that it's a beverage which you can pair with any kind of cuisine. And the variety of flavors that you get in wines, you are bound to find something that's going to work with a different kind of cuisine.
Correct.
Okay?
Correct.
So when another interesting conversation which I had last month, I think, with a Frenchman who lives in Mumbai, and he wants to open a wine bar, okay? But he says, no, but I won't have only French wines. I said, firstly, bad idea, commercial, like business point of view. You can't have just French wines. People will not come to your wine bar. Secondly, have you ever thought of this, that you can actually pair French wines with Indian food? Maybe you want to include some Indian food when you prepare a menu for your wine bar. What? It's not possible. I said, well, experiment at home. He's married to an Indian lady, as it happens.
Okay.
I said, please experiment at home. I can tell you, I have tried Bengan ka bharta with Pinot Noir, and it works fabulously. Okay, so I think you just need to get out of this whole thing that wine cannot, tolerate spices. And I said, that's not the case. It's your palate that cannot handle spices. Wine and certain spices can pair very well. It depends on what spice and what wine. Now, obviously, if you're going to take something which is very acidic and try to pair it with, something like aam ka achar, it's not going to work because it's too acidic as a combination.
Correct.
You need to know what to pair with what. And once you get a hang of it, because your palate keeps telling you, keeps sending you signals, guys, this is not working.
Okay. Yeah.
So pay attention to what your palate is saying, and that's it. And I'm a firm believer that people need to start pairing food with regional Indian cuisine.
Yeah.
Not just paneer tikka and chicken tikka masala. No. Regional Indian cuisine. Tamilian cuisine, Kannadiga cuisine, Kerala cuisine, Bengali, Odia. Only then will wine start reaching out to more audience. Because people don't change food habits that easily.
Correct.
They are okay to try out beverages once in a while. But changing food habits is very difficult.
True.
Like you said, I don't know which cheese to eat because cheese is not an integral part of your everyday food.
Exactly.
And you won't understand the differences between the cheeses unless you have regularly been eating them. I still don't. I mean, I lived in France for 2 years, but I still don't know some of the cheeses that they have. I still don't understand the flavors.
Correct.
So I wouldn't come up with a pairing if you give me one particular cheese. I wouldn't do that. But you ask me with our flavors, it is difficult to pair Indian dishes with wine, primarily because Indian dishes have so many different flavors and aromas coming together.
Yeah.
But it's not impossible.
I agree
It's
to
not
that
impossible.
completely. I agree to that completely. I've been pushing that quite a bit myself, and we've been trying quite a few things on that. Is the to continuing with this particular part? So, is the education which a wine sommelier or a wine expert, whoever it may be, right, is going through? Is that the reason where Indian food is not looked at? I'll give you an example. Okay, so when I'm doing a tasting, when I go through the education, that there is blackberry, there is raisins, plums, tropical fruits which are possibly not available in India, right? They look at those kind of flavors, and when people study and come back, I've done that myself. So when they come back, they यहाँ तो गड़बड़ है मतलब where do I find a blackberry, right? I mean, you might be getting, but where do I find that? How do I look at that? Is that also a issue?
So, okay, education per se, you have to understand that it started where did it start? It started from Europe.
Okay.
So their reference points are always going to be what is available locally. It's up to us to find reference points which are Indian, right? Like I can say, hey, I'm getting jamun ka flavor in this wine, which they will not at all know. And this is an experience that I have had during tastings when I was a student in doing my wine program. First tasting I went to, somebody tasted a white wine, and this was in Burgundy, and said, "Oh, I'm getting mango," and I'm like, where are you getting mango on a white wine? And then it struck me, their reference point for mango is the African mango.
Okay.
Which doesn't develop the sugar levels that our Alfonso develops or the varieties we have developed.
Got it.
So, for me, mango is Alfonso or the sherry or langda, which are very, very sweet.
Correct.
And for them, it's a bland mango. So, obviously, it's not the same thing. The other thing is, I used to say, oh, I'm getting cumin flavor on this red wine. They don't know cumin flavor because they don't use it every day. And for me, cumin is part of my everyday cooking. So, obviously, I identify it, which they don't. So, which is where I feel that, tasting notes on the wine bottles also need to have local references.
That's a very interesting point you made.
Because if you have those local references, people may start, feeling A, comfortable with the description.
Right.
B, knowing what the wine would end up being like. Because, how many people have tasted black currants?
Exactly.
I don't think I have tasted a black currant. Or maybe I have in France and I don't know that fruit is called black currant. But again, the reference point is not familiar.
Absolutely.
And that is where the problem comes. So even the dishes that are mentioned as pairing dishes, there was a big discussion for the Australian wines. Should we mention beef on it or not? We are selling in India. Will people be sensitive to it? I said no, people will not be sensitive to it because most of them don't really read the tasting notes. But honestly speaking, it really doesn't matter because more than half of the audience already knows that the dishes mentioned are going to be European or Western. not Indian, right? So it doesn't really matter. So for you to think, oh, we might offend somebody's religious sentiment, it's not really going to offend anybody on that part. But yeah, for them to start actually describing the wine in terms of Indian flavors, familiarity to Indian flavors, they have to know what the Indian flavors are.
True.
So the person writing the tasting note has to be Indian. It
True.
can't be an Australian writing tasting notes for an Indian.
But that, I think, will surely reduce the intimidation. Yeah,
It will.
use that
It
word
will.
again and again, because I feel people are
It will.
intimidated. Yeah.
And so again, now coming to sommeliers, which is where I feel that Indian sommeliers still haven't localized their knowledge.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, to say that they don't really describe flavors in local flavors in terms of local fruits, veggies, spices, whatever. And you really can. While I understand that blackcurrant doesn't taste like mango or jamun, um, but you can
But I'm sure
bring
there
a
are-
point. You can bring a closer
100%.
reference point. You don't have to have the exact thing.
Absolutely.
Like till date, I read descriptions where they say the smell and aroma of violets, and I have not yet seen the violet flower myself. So I just zap over that description because for me it doesn't make sense. It's never registered in my memory.
So, as a business model, do you think there is scope for a finishing school for the sommeliers?
Hey, they'll take offense to it. They think they already finished when they get out of their sommelier training.
And the way Indian wineries are going about, there are quite a few good ones. There are quite a few large ones. There is Indian wine tourism, which is picking up quite a bit. I mean, there was a time when, now people, when they go to Nasik, they want to go to Sula and, click photos and attend a tasting session over there, which is something which is different because अभी अगर नासिक गया अरे तू सुला जा रहा है क्या ऐसे हो गया है so it's become that kind of a thing. But is that a misunderstanding towards the consumers from the winery side of things?
In which way? Sorry.
In terms that the actual wine is getting converted to wine tourism, or is it a benefit? That's
I think you're right. It is a disadvantage. It is a misinterpretation of. I mean, I think companies like Sula have probably shifted focus from the product to the side product, which was the wine tourism. And yes, I think Sula does better numbers probably with their wine tourism than with actual selling the wine.
they've been there for a very long time. But similarly, there are boutique wineries also in Nasik, which are doing a very small mom and pop shop kind of a thing. And they are also doing wine tourism, but they don't, of course, make lakhs and lakhs of cases. They just make whatever they are consuming, right? So that puts me into a bit of a question mark that whether small batch is good, whether large wineries are doing the right thing. What is the right way to go?
The one thing that I learned during my course in France was less is more. Okay, so the smaller production actually gives you a higher quality product. Also because you pay more attention. Higher volume production is mass and therefore is what mass production would be. The focus is not on quality. The focus is on producing more.
Okay.
And I guess to each his own, but
Yeah.
I would certainly prefer the smaller batch. If I am paying for something, I would rather be paying for quality than just random like base level quality.
Yeah, I mean, if I go by what I've been talking and even experienced wine over the last few years. By the way, I've just started drinking wine 4 years back. Okay, so
Okay.
it's very new to me also. But whatever I have been drinking, right? If I see a 2024 vintage or a 2023 vintage or a 2022 vintage and a 2025 vintage, if I'm able to tell the difference between them, I'm happy because I know somebody's worked on it. Okay, it's not machine which has produced it. Or when it comes to something like a gin, right? Gins are, I mean, small distilleries which manufacture only that much quantity. There again, I wouldn't say that batches differ, but there is a certain taste, which changes from one particular gin to another gin, right? So I think I agree. The less is more, and that is where I think the winemakers also come into the picture.
Yeah.
Right? Because if a person, I'm just going back to the education side of things, if a person is doing getting into a career of winemaking, correct? It's almost as good as being in the back end and just making wines.
Yeah.
But now, like the chefs have become in front of the camera. I think we should be bringing the winemakers also to talk about their wines over here. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So,
I think you should, and I think nobody can convince a person to convert to drinking wine as an articulate winemaker can. Okay, now is every winemaker articulate? I don't know.
That's
okay, I don't know. I haven't come all of them at similar levels of articulation, but there are some who are very articulate and who know what they are talking about and who can explain what they have done for the wine to be in that, to have that style or to have that flavor profile, whatever. It is important, I think, because I don't think it is, finally, I don't think it is the CEO who's the person who's crafting the product. The CEO is managing the business, but the product is getting created by the winemaker. So I think the winemaker should be brought in front to talk about.
And that will add more winemakers also
his
to the
or
industry.
her creative creation. Yeah, we do need, so India unfortunately doesn't have as many wineries as there were. Today doesn't have as many wineries as there were when I came back from France. Okay.
Oh, that's a big statement, yeah. Oh, I thought they had increased, no?
No. They've shrunk actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the number has gone down. Because the business is not easy. Making wine is not that complicated. It's the selling the wine that is complicated.
Yeah, I understand that part, yeah.
So yeah, the number of wineries have gone down. In terms of what they should be speaking about. So I know a couple of winemakers who can really, say what they've done and who can really explain it. Now, some tend to be technical, some tend to know how to put it in front of a lay person. So that, of course, that varies from person to person. Like I said, sommeliers, not all of them realize that they don't need to be geeky in front of everybody.
True. When I talk more and more to people, I've like I said, last 4 years, I've been talking a lot to people who've stayed abroad, France, Italy, US, and have been drinking wine. And when they come back, and so I'd gone to a cycling trip to Nasik, and we had done winery hops on the cycle. We were not drinking so much, but yeah, we had done the winery hops on cycle. And I was actually learning because it was something like 4 years back. But these guys already knew a bit of it. So there was always the influence of, nahi yaar, udhar to aisa piya tha, idhar to aisa piya tha, udhar aisa nahi milta, the same grape, is not thing. So I've been asking this question to almost everybody. Is it time that the Indian grapes get their identity for the Indian wines, so that there is a differentiation created?
If you're saying grapes of Indian origin,
Yeah.
I'm not technically
Okay.
qualified to give that
Okay.
give a detailed answer, but I would think that most of the Indian varieties are table grape varieties,
Okay.
and which is probably why they don't get used.
Or if we take it if we flip the question, okay, so we make a Chenin here, we
Yeah.
make a Merlot here, we make a Pinot also is made now in India, or grown and then made in India. The conditions are different,
Yes.
right? The grape will definitely be different, right? So can that be qualified as an Indian Pinot or something like that, like a French Pinot or a Italian Pinot or something like that?
Yeah, but I think that already is happening
Is
with
there?
at least not Pinot, because there are only two companies which are making Pinot, but and that too I'm not sure if they are continuing to do so because I haven't seen following vintages. But Sauvignon, Chardonnay, your regular red and white grapes, I think there is a better expression of those grapes given the Indian conditions.
Okay.
I think they do express themselves differently,
Okay. Okay.
which would happen, I guess, for any agricultural product. It is
Yeah.
not just grapes. How a plant responds to its surrounding will
Correct.
change from
Correct. Correct.
location to location. And I personally feel that, so just to give you an example, Fratelli's Cabernet Sauvignon, I think is one of the better Cabernet Sauvignons that India produces
Okay.
in comparison to any other Cabernet Sauvignon. Of course, there aren't too many people who are making 100% Cabernet.
Mm-hmm.
I think Rivello makes it and Valone makes it. Everyone else has a Cabernet Shiraz blend.
Okay. Okay.
But Fratelli's Cabernet Sauvignon really stands out, especially as it ages.
Okay.
It stands out in comparison to the Nasik ones.
Okay.
And so it is obviously the geographic location which is making a difference to how the plant is responding to its surroundings.
Yeah. So people who come back and who've actually drunk wine or outside in the Europe, and they come to India and drink a Fratelli. So what would be your advice to them that when they pick up their first wine in India, right? What would be your advice that remove or unlearn whatever you've done in Europe or drunk in Europe and you've come here, or what? How
Don't compare.
Don't compare.
Don't compare because it's really not comparable. Like I said, any plant which is put into a different set of geographic conditions is going to respond very differently.
I think the Indian audience needs to understand very clearly, because I've when I look at the consumer side, there's always a comparison about what I had there and what I had there and what I'm having in India. Whereas I genuinely feel that we've got some good wines.
No, there are some very good wines. I think we are making very, very good wines in India. Okay, that wasn't the case 10 years back, but today I think there are some very good wines. 10 years back, maybe there were fewer of them, but today we are surely making good wines.
True.
Not all of them are good, even that I will say and accept. But on the whole, every winery is producing something that is good.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'm sure we should give credit to wherever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is effort put in. So at least we have to acknowledge that. It's not easy to work in this business, believe me. So anyone who has hung around or been around for a long time, even if they are not big names, I think they need due recognition just for being at it.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons for doing something like this, that I'm trying to do this, is that the Indian small batch producers, okay, they get visibility. That's one of the primary things. I think not only in wines but in spirits also, there are very good distilleries who make very good spirits. Maybe it is a whiskey, or whether it is a gins specifically, or even a Feni for that matter. Right? They need visibility at the right place. There may be 30-40 Feni brands, right? But some of them are really very appreciable. So this is one of the ways that I'm trying to contribute to get the Indian distillers or the winemakers to in the forefront, kind of thing. Hope I succeed. Now, coming back to the tasting aspect of it, when we talked about so many grapes and varietals and all, and before that we spoke about that it's a palate-based thing, right? So there are varietals, each grape is different, each grape ultimately when it turns into wine tastes different. But in India, it started off with the red wine and the white wine. Okay?
Yeah.
Nobody really knew the difference. And Abhi, okay, if I remove the label and I don't put any grape name or something like that, will people still be able to make a difference out of it?
To identify the grape varietal?
Not the grape varietal. Yeah, I mean, to make a difference in the taste first and then go to the grape varietal.
So it depends on where you are. I think in Mumbai you might find people who are able to tell the difference.
Okay.
In Bangalore you might find people who will be able to tell the difference. I think there are more consumers in these cities who actually want to know and therefore sort of apply what they have learned and then are able to tell the difference. It's like coffee, right? I mean,
yeah.
Can you really tell between a French press and a pour over and an espresso what the difference is coming, where the difference is coming from in the initial 1 or 2 months of you trying these? I bet it takes several months of tasting them over and over again to understand the difference from what French press brings in versus pour over versus espresso. Right? So I think it's basically how your palate starts noticing the differences.
Correct.
And that only comes over a period of time.
That comes from getting your palate adjusted to a lot of things, drinking coffee at a lot of places, and same thing I think with the wine aspect of it.
So I mean, I remember my mom and my friends' moms talking about, अरे नहीं ये ना यहाँ का बैंगन इतना अच्छा नहीं होता है, वो वहाँ का बैंगन बहुत ज़्यादा अच्छा होता है. What? बैंगन is बैंगन. How can it? But then when you start actually paying attention to what you're tasting, you start realizing that there is a difference.
There is.
Okay, I mean, and long eggplant versus the actual round bharte ka eggplant versus the thorny variety, they all actually do taste different.
True.
But it's only when you start paying attention to what your palate is picking up as signals and transmitting to your brains, that is when you realize that yes, there is a difference. And it's the same thing with wines, I think. So only when you start paying attention, you start noting the differences, and you may be doing it subconsciously, you may not be doing it consciously. But if it is happening even subconsciously, that is when you start realizing, oh, I'd actually like that wine better than this one. That is where you start looking at, oh, what was that wine and what is this wine?
So we still have to reach there as a consumer country.
I think some people have, but it is probably like a handful in comparison to a roomful. So yeah, we do have a long distance ahead of us. People are paying attention to that. It's not like people are not. But then I do interact with people who are really entrenched in the wine thing. So I'm probably not a good measure. I don't have a good measure for what is this level and what is that level.
So I believe you started a wine community, right?
Yes, I had.
Yeah. So
I had a community from, I forget the years now. But 4 years I ran it with an event every month.
Okay.
Which was usually a wine dinner
in
different parts of the city with and mainly with Indian wines, actually.
Okay.
I probably did 1 or 2 dinners with imported wines, but it was mostly with Indian wines. And yeah, I think 4 years I ran it without, with a few breaks
Okay.
because of holidays and
Yeah,
stuff.
I know. Yeah.
But yeah, 4 years is, and like yours, I used to consistently have 15 to 25 people attending.
Lovely.
Which of course ended because I took on the assignment with Monica Alcover, which required me to
Okay.
be out
Out
of
of,
Pune very frequently. And so then coordination started becoming a challenge, which is where I stopped doing it.
So this was
But I still get reminders from a couple of the members who used to attend regularly. When are you going to do it?
add them into my club. So how was the experience of running the community?
Oh, very good. It was very good. And of course, I was working in the trade. I was working with Fratelli first, and then I was with other Indian, smaller Indian wineries. So it was great in that sense that I managed to showcase Indian wines in a different perspective, because people, and fortunately I used to have a lot of expats who wanted to discover Indian wines. So that was also a good thing. Of course, there were Indian consumers who were also curious. So that, I think it was good. It was overall a very good experience. A, because I like interacting with people of different backgrounds, and B, because I also wanted to try the creative thought process of pairing variety of foods with wines.
Wines.
Yeah, so I remember one Valentine's Day, 1 February month, tasting was done with just chocolate and wines.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then I had done one with Malacca spice cuisine. So that's
Okay.
not an easy cuisine to
Yeah,
pair food with.
Yeah.
So that I had done. Then of course there were a whole lot of others, but these two I remember. And then Stonewater Grill used to exist back then.
Correct.
And I'd done an Indian meal with a fantastic biryani, which I still remember. People still remember the biryani. They don't
Not the
remember the
wine.
wine that they had with it, but they remember the biryani.
Yeah. Malaga Spice still runs a community, wine community.
So
I
they do
believe.
have a wine festival every year.
Yeah, they do.
I missed the last one. I wasn't in Pune, so I couldn't attend it. But I do end up attending most of them.
Wine festivals is one way to get the consumer closer to wines, right?
So I personally feel when wine festivals were happening every year in Pune, there was more action in the wine world of Pune than now. But then you can't expect that community, that the wine festivals were run by Shankar,
I
who
know.
is now
I know. He's
well into
75
his
plus, yeah.
retirement. You can't expect Shankar to be doing that. Nobody's taken up the relay. So you need a wine festival of that scale for people to be engaged. Because I saw this in Mumbai this year. 2025. The Wine Growers Association of India
Correct.
organized the Bandra Wine Out.
Yeah.
And man, the engagement of the audience, unbelievable. It really reminded me of the wine festivals that Shankar used to organize.
Okay.
It went off so well that I remember we ran out of stock on day one. Because I had never anticipated.
The one that happened right now, yeah? That was a few months back.
Yeah. I hadn't anticipated the scale, and they hadn't told us how many people they were expecting. I ran out of stock on day one.
This was the second year they were doing it.
This was the second year.
Yeah.
Day two, we scrambled and got stock from retailers to make sure that we had something to pour for the people who came into the festival. But it means that people want to try wines. People want to drink wines. It's not that they don't want to. They just want the experience along with it. And that festival was really an eye-opener for me. And I'm like, Why is everybody grumbling that people don't want to drink wines? Come see the audience there. In 2 evenings, believe me, just
I
two
know.
evenings, we sold 65,000 rupees worth of wine.
Wow. Okay.
This is discounted prices that I'm talking about. So it obviously means there is interest.
There is surely. So that gives me another business idea.
Okay, Dushyant, I didn't know you were here discussing your business ideas.
So yeah, no, I've been. We did a very small festival as the car circle. We did a small festival in Mumbai.
Okay.
There is a club called The Club,
Yeah.
Juhu. So we got 10 wineries there, and it was inside.
Yeah.
So we had the club members who actually came in, and there were quite a few. So we started in the afternoon, 12 o'clock, but that was not the right time. After 4 o'clock, we till evening, till about 8 o'clock, we were supposed to close at 8 o'clock. Everybody went off. I mean, there was all the wines they got over. So the wineries went back happy. The people who came and tasted the wines, they went back happy. And I think I was happy too, because we got about 100 people coming for the first time that I ever attempted a festival like that. So I think that's a plus. And yeah, like you said, I mean, I've been a little skeptical. Pune mein hoga, chalega, nahi chalega, because it's a lot of cost.
I know I know that the back end is a little challenging for that, but I think it is something that will work. Because it did for he organized 9 festivals.
I know.
Shankar,
I have attended a couple of them. Yeah.
Shankar organized 9 editions, so it's not a. And then of course COVID changed a lot of things for everybody, but I still think that that's the best way of bringing your consumer to the forefront and getting them to try different kinds of wines.
But what Wine Out did, I think, is put live music, good wines, and then a real festival kind of an atmosphere. So it is not something like the serious wine drinking kind of thing. You come, drink wine, have fun also. Wine is not boring. Wine is fun too.
But that's precisely what needs to be demonstrated to the consumer. It can be a fun beverage. It does not need to be perceived as a boring beverage or a intimidating one. If you ask me, I find spirits boring.
Okay, that's controversial.
They are boring. Whiskey is whiskey. I mean, vodka is vodka.
So you need to attend one of my tasting sessions then.
I have done a lot of whiskey tastings, but I still find them super boring. I don't think spirits bring the variety that wines can bring.
Yeah. But there is a lot of layering in.
No, I know there is layering in certain kinds of spirits, but it just doesn't have the same thing as wine does.
Yeah, wine. I mean, it changes from every step and everything that goes up and down, and whether you do it intentionally or you don't do it intentionally, there's a lot which play there.
A company like Sula could have done so many vertical tastings till now. They've never done it because they've never created a wine library. The only company that has done a vertical tasting is Fratelli with its Sette.
Yeah.
And why did that happen? Because the Italians knew that they can actually show how the wine has progressed. And they have done a vertical tasting of Sette. And that is something that people need to see, I mean, if you experience that, oh hell, really wine can really change like that from year to year.
Interesting. That's also another interesting point, because once these are demonstrable and people, the wineries go out and demonstrate it, I think the challenge with wineries possibly is कि business संभाले या ये संभाले. I mean,
But there are different sets of people who have to do those things.
Yeah.
The CEO can't be expected to do a vertical tasting of the wines. But the CEO should know that a vertical tasting is possible to be done, and therefore we should keep some stock aside for that.
Right. I take your point from that. So, staying on the business side now, okay, what are the challenges for the business side of things?
We'll need an hour and a half at least to discuss that. Minimum. A lot of challenges. Honestly, it's not the easiest business to be in. Which is why I said the smaller wineries that have been there, wineries like Valone and Rivello, hats off to them for having sustained. They may not be generating huge profits or all of that, but their sustaining itself is a big achievement. Lot of challenges.
One barrier which you can say that, this is the biggest one.
One barrier is, of course, our regulations of state excise differing from state to state. So distribution becomes a very big challenge. And therefore the pricing, right? So if wine were to come under GST and one would have uniform pricing across the country, distribution would become easier.
That will put more competition on the shelf, and that would...
It really doesn't matter. According to me, competition doesn't matter.
No,
People just say, oh, there are just too many labels, this and that. Hello, there are too many labels in gins also. And there are too many labels in whiskies also.
Very much.
What are you talking about? There are too many labels in pickles. People are still buying different types of pickles.
Absolutely.
So there is no reason to grumble about it. Which is what I can't fathom as a retailer. When a retailer tells me this, oh, there are just too many labels. Nobody's, every brand is losing market share. I'm like, no. You grow the market, you don't lose market share.
Correct.
The perception is itself wrong that you want the pie to remain only that small. That is where the mistake is. Why aren't you thinking of having a bigger pie? So get a bigger pie dish. That nobody is thinking about.
So I'm a firm believer, the more the competition, the more the consumer knowledge grows, the more the consumer, he has or she has more options on this thing, and it's better for the industry.
Is anybody grumbling about there being so many different models of cars on the road?
Should you do that?
I would have said, let there be just a Maruti 800, no?
Absolutely.
नहीं, गाड़ियाँ तो चाहिए. Then nobody's grumbling about that. It's finally a consumer product.
I agree.
So the mindset is the problem. It is not the product which is the problem. It is not the absence of consumers, because consumers are willing, but the consumers want a good quality product for the price they are paying. Simple. It's as simple as that. Somebody asked me yesterday, I was talking to an Italian gentleman yesterday, who said, what do you think with the European FTA that has been signed? Do you think the market is going to grow? I said, it can grow, conditional to the fact that the different state authorities don't go and bump up state duties, because that then has no benefit, but I said, but the fact that the duties go down, customs duties go down on European wines, will at least ensure that people start looking at better quality product to buy, rather than the cheap stuff they have been used to buying so far. And that is the one reason why consumers are not taken to wine, because they've been drinking bad stuff at the price point they are willing to spend. It's as simple as that.
That's a very bold statement.
It is that. You can ask any random person, if they want to spend 1,500 rupees, what would they spend it on? Would they spend it on an Indian wine, or would they spend it on a French wine? They would probably say, yes, I'll spend it on a French wine, thinking that, the French have been making wines for so many years, so it has to be good. But when they actually consume it, they realize the wine is not good. Because why? Because the importer has brought it in trying to fit the price range
that would be acceptable,
but has not verified whether the quality is what meets the consumer expectation.
Yeah, I think it's all a play around that particular thing. But lately, just a few weeks back, Karnataka has started doing some reforms in the...
Yeah, I'm waiting to hear the final decision around that, because I believe that circular has not yet come out.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to hear. They are apparently changing the duty structure
Based on the percentage.
based on the percentage of alcohol.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I hear.
Yeah.
Is what
So I, in fact, asked a few people based in Bangalore whether it will impact the pricing of wines. He said, ma'am, we don't expect it to. We think it is actually going to be only around spirits. But they said, but then we don't know the final thing because we haven't yet received the circular. So they were also waiting.
Okay.
If
I
that
think,
happens, nothing like it.
Yeah, I think it's opening up quite a few places, because what I read is Chandigarh is also doing distribution is changing over there. UP has or is giving permission to a lot of wineries to
Yes.
come up over there. Meghalaya has got, Himachal Pradesh has got, although maybe not grape wines, but fruit wines. But wineries and wines per se is something which is being given focus to. In fact, one of the Win Expos 2 years back, I think there was a full stall which was dedicated to Meghalaya. Seven wineries, and the government of Meghalaya had
brought them in,
participated over there.
That was
so I think
3 years back.
3 years back. Yeah, I think that is something that shows that the government is backing them. So if the reforms move and if they are coming in properly, right, and according to what, to grow the industry, then do you see a good future for wines in India?
Yeah, I think the regulatory bodies really need to wake up and be with the times, because they want the revenue, but they don't want to make life easy. And I don't mean life easy in terms of, let them do what they want to do. Let there be the framework of, restrictions, alcoholic beverage, finally. I don't want it landing up with any random person. So, yes, you need to have the checks and controls in place. But at the same time, don't harass the industry, right? I mean, you go to any retailer, any restaurateur, any hotel, any company producing, everybody badmouths excise. And everybody badmouths excise because excise is behaving in that manner with them. I think it's time that government bodies, and I'm not talking about any one person or any one government, the whole attitude has to be towards facilitating within given parameters rather than being watchdogs. They only understand being watchdogs. But then nothing grows when you're a watchdog. What has happened with other industries, I'm not talking alcobev industry. You look at other industries also. The moment they shifted from being watchdog to being facilitators, things changed. And if you're going to survive on the revenue generated by the business, generated by the alcobev industry in your state, you actually should be having the role of a facilitator rather than being a watchdog.
So I was reading somewhere that on an average, every state gets 13 or 14% of revenue from the alcobev industry.
No, it's lower. It's way higher than that.
No, on an average. So there are some states which get 28, 29%, some states which get lesser. I'm just giving an average of it.
In the lockdown what happened, right?
I know. So which itself is a huge amount of revenue. So if I'm a business person and if it's my cash cow, I would do everything to
make sure it survives and thrives.
Well, and does well.
And thrives, yeah.
So, yeah, I think that that part definitely the reforms should come
address.
Yeah.
And I think all states need to awaken to the fact that more and more people are consuming alcohol. It's not by being watchdogs that they're going to increase their revenues, and not by increasing duties that they're going to increase revenues. They have to look at a different way of achieving their revenue targets rather than being a constant watchdog and breathing down everybody's neck and harassing everybody.
Yeah, I think I'll Whenever I speak to an industry person, I think the first thing that comes up is the separate labeling aspect of it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the taxation part of it, and the way the monitoring is being done. So, I think there are reforms which are needed
Desperately
over there,
needed.
desperately needed.
And I feel if they brought everything under GST with similar taxation across the country, you won't even have the issues with separate labeling, right?
Labeling, yeah.
You'll have just one label across the country.
Which will be such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, which would be much easier. And then you'll actually get to know, then it's a level playing field.
Yeah.
That's when you'll really know whether people are drinking more alcohol or not.
And this goes specifically with wines because if there is a small batch producer, he's going to think 3 times, 5 times before entering another state. One, he has to level up his production game. Second, then he has to look at what the state is going to ask for, and then think about,
Yes.
how do I market it over there,
And how do I recover all the costs?
how do I recover? So it's like easily a 5-year plan for him to go into another state is what I feel.
Most people are not entering other states because of that. Because the administrative hassles are way too much.
Way too much.
And I don't blame them. If it's a small team in the winery, you will deal only with what you can.
Yeah. Many wineries are just 4-5 people.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not surprising that you don't find wine from Karnataka in Meghalaya and Arunachal is a dry state. Sorry, Meghalaya and Assam. It's not surprising.
So Sujata, if your whatever journey you've been seeing through and the way you're talking today, what keeps you exciting, and the challenges that you have talked about, what keeps you excited about wines?
Good question. These days I've been wondering, what am I doing?
I like that answer.
I have been wondering, what am I doing? No, I just think there is so much there for people to explore, and if I can be the beans of people to, find out and learn and explore. I don't mean academically learn, but even just experience it. I think there's so much there. Because you start with the palate, but it could lead to wine tourism, right? And I'm not talking wine tourism to Nasik, but I'm talking wine tourism to, say, Chile and Argentina and Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah.
You become the sort of the channel to that. And I think that's what excites me. Not that I've taken groups anywhere, but it's the thought that excites me that, this is possible. This is something one should try doing. Take a group across, get them to experience what they live every day and how is it that they make a difference to their kind of wine product, the style of making wines or whatever. And I studied wines in Burgundy, right? So Burgundy, and my program was very interesting for the simple reason that we had to visit different wine regions as part of the study program. So we had study tours to all the different wine regions of France. I think the only one we did not cover was Loire Valley because it's a very vast area. But we did go to all the wine regions. And I had a Lebanese batchmate who himself was a winemaker but was doing this business school program. And he made a very, something that I would not have observed. But when we went to Bordeaux, he made an observation which I thought was, okay. So now I understand what is really happening. He said, do you realize that every winery we've been to in Bordeaux, they're all doing the same step in the processing of the wine. Okay. It was, I don't remember what the step was, but it was the same step that they were all doing. We used to visit 4 wineries in a day and they were all doing the same thing. And we had a visit of about 3 days in Bordeaux. So 3 into 4, 12 wineries. He said, how is it possible that everybody's wine is evolving in the same manner? It is not possible. So when you go and visit a Burgundy winery, you realize that everybody's wines are evolving in a different manner and they are evolving at a different pace. They are growing, in fact, in Burgundy, they are growing only those two grape varieties, Pinot Noir and Chardonnay.
Correct.
And they could actually not have as much of a difference, but they have a lot of difference happening. Whereas the Bordeaux guys, no, they're all doing the same thing at the same time. How is that possible?
Okay.
So these are things that when you start paying attention to the back end, that's what you start realizing that, hey, okay, so what is this going to have as an impact on the flavor? What is this going to have an impact on, say, the aging potential of the wine?
Correct.
These are things that I really love exploring about wine. Doesn't mean that everybody will, but it does have something to offer in terms of little things that will make your experience more enriching, more interesting.
Yeah. These are the stories that I think people would love to listen to.
Precisely.
These are the stories.
Precisely. This is what will link them to the product. Like I told you, my Aragma experience yesterday, it was the stories that they told about the ingredients that made the whole evening more interesting than, because I know I'm never going to make those dishes. Not possible also. The way they make them, it's not possible. But it was all the little things that they spoke about, the ingredients and all of that. That is what makes a big difference. And the linking of the product in front of you to your experience.
So I think the storytelling does matter. The experience is what will, take more people to the wine side of things.
Yes.
Like I said, I keep using the word intimidation because yes, people are intimidated by wines. To break that, these are the things that people need to.
Because unless you bring the product closer to the consumer, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And does the consumer approach the product himself or herself? Maybe they do, but then the person explaining the product has to be bringing it closer to them.
Correct.
That's the thing.
Thanks a lot, Sujata. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for your
It was lovely listening to your experience continuously.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for being there.
Yeah. Bye.